Hey Bunnrings! I'm Cora Kira, your ever-curious and ever-loyal companion, and your personal guide to the retro realm of bunnhop. We're back with another 10 lore facts video, and this time we'll be talking about similarities and differences between the Ragnarok Into the Abyss Manhwa by Lee Myung-jin and the original Ragnarok Online MMORPG by Gravity. If you're a fan of the franchise, I highly recommend you to pick up and read the English translation of the manhwa by fantasy author Richard A. Konak, who has also written works for Blizzard Entertainment's Diablo and World of Warcraft series. This English translation is published by Tokyo Pop in North America. Although this manhwa is largely incomplete and only 10 volumes have been published, I did enjoy reading it for the first time last year. I also read it a second time last week to refresh my memory in preparation for this video. The world building and the cast of characters are phenomenal in my opinion, and I hope that you have fun reading it as well. As we've mentioned in our lore retrospective video, the hit early 2000s South Korean MMO was partly inspired by the manhwa, which itself took inspiration from Norse mythology, East Asian mythology, and East Asian pop culture, particularly in terms of tropes found in comics or graphic novels and animated movies and series. But before we dive into comparisons and lore analysis between the two pieces of media, it is important to note that the manhwa and the game are not set in the same universe. They are parallel universes, as implied by Rune Midgard's court mage Nilum in episode 16 of the game. As I've mentioned in our first 10 lore facts video, Beginner's Edition, the Ragnarok franchise is a multiverse. Still, it's interesting to see just how much these two realities share in common and in what ways they differ. With that out of the way, let's start by listing down the major characters of the manhwa. Our main protagonist is a bright red-haired rune knight called Chaos, who carries a sword called Vision and is said to be the reincarnation of the fallen Asir god Baldur. We also have Fenris Fenrir, the reincarnation of Fenrir the wolf, known in Norse mythology as the child of the god Loki. Fenris is a warlock who carries the sword Lavatine. Next up is Iris Irene, a cleric who hails from Paeon and is the daughter of the village chief. Her sword is Chonryongdo, or Blue Dragon Sword, one of the 4 swords passed down to the descendants of the 4 constellations. More on that later. The 4th member of the party is a mysterious high-ranking member of the Assassin's Guild who goes by the name Loki and is said to carry one of the 7 guillotine crosses symbols, which most probably means he is a guillotine cross. His weapon is called Sword of Shadows, but is actually a dagger. We've also got Lydia, a thief, daughter of a renowned treasure hunter who's always accompanied by her talking cat, Sess. And last, but definitely not the least, we have Sakurai, known as the Cursed Swordsman, who actually used to be a royal guard from a long-forgotten country. He got demoted? His soul is bound to a sentient demon sword called Talatsu. Other key characters include Sarah Irene, a Valkyrie and sister to Iris, Himelmes, one of Freya's Valkyries, Zenobia Sadie Frail, another powerful Valkyrie working for Freya but has her own motivations, and the Beholders, a pair of shape-shifting humanoid crows who work for Odin. Now that we've got an idea on the who's who of the manhwa, let's move on to the similarities. This is broken down into 5 categories, and we shall start with the same world. This is a quick list of almost one-to-one similarities between the manhwa and the game. Let's go! Midgard was created using the heart of Ymir in both the game and the manhwa. Zeni is the main currency in Midgard in both pieces of media, although in the source material, there is a subunit called Rupero, which most likely stands for cents. This is changed into rupee in the sequel Ragnarok Online 2. Some of the cities in Rune Midgards are featured in the manhwa, namely Alberta, Paeon, Prantera, and Geffen. Aldebaran is also briefly mentioned as Altevaran in the manhwa, where the alchemist Faye Canavian hails from. The Rune Midgard's insignia, that we all know and love from the game, can also be seen stamped on the letter from General Spiegel. Geffen Tower, where Chaos fights Sakurai to save Iris in Volume 10 of the manhwa, looks the same in the game, with its iconic wizard hat shape. The rest of Geffen City, particularly the architecture, looks very similar in both the game and the manhwa as well. Schwarzwald is also mentioned in the manhwa as the City of Sages. In the manhwa, Rune Midgard's regularly trades with Schwarzwald Republic, as mentioned by General Spiegel, with the airship functioning as the major mode of logistics transport between the two countries. This is largely unchanged in the game. Since the introduction of the Schwarzwald Republic in Episode 5 Juno, we know that the two countries have always maintained fairly friendly relations with one another and often trade commodities, as well as knowledge in the form of research, with each other, as opposed to the rather tumultuous relationship between Odin as Rune Midgards and Freya worshipping a Runefelds. Bounty hunting is a common source of income for adventurers in the source material, as depicted in Chaos and Iris' quest to defeat faceworms. Their task is to collect the horns attached to these monsters' chins as proof of defeat and to turn them in at the bounty office in Alberta. The same is true in Ragnarok Online, where we, adventurers, take advantage of bounties put up by Midgardian NPCs to gain experience points or EXP to level up, as well as to collect zenny, loot, and gears. As the game mechanic, these are called daily quests. Some spell names are similar between the game and the manhwa. Chaos' favorite skill, Magnum Break, Teleportation, which seems to be a spell to call for wind spirits to move you to your intended destination, as cast by Fenris in Volume 1, Napalm Ray, which is probably like Napalm Vulcan in the game, and Tetra Vortex, which is cast by Fenris as Thor Storm Tetra Vortex during the Geffen Magic Tournament in the manhwa. Although his name is not explicitly mentioned in the manhwa, the characteristic scar under his left eye that distinguishes him from his younger brother Tarlok proves that the airship captain that we meet in the manhwa is indeed Captain Furlock. He talks and acts the same way as in the game. He also runs away from the fight toward the end. In the source material, while attempting to find the hidden entrance to Alfheim, Lydia reads the following passage from her dearly departed father's treasure book. The tears of agony from the demon's eye obscure the seal. The bird of paradise born from those tears. Only one who truly understands the demon's sorrow will grasp the secrets of antiquity. In Ragnarok Online, we use the gem Lucifer's Lament, obtained through the infamous Design quest to open the portal to Gethenia. As we know, Lucifer is a demon, and lament means sorrow or sadness, which usually leads to tears, just like in the riddle. In the penultimate volume of the manhwa, Sakurai claims that the Geffen Tower has a sordid history. A, quote, history filled with tales of power and lust. Powerful people were killed here. Dark magic was cast here. And at one time, it even served as a jail. More recently, it served as a meeting place for a dark coven, end quote. This could all point to the lore of the Geffen dungeon and the story of the MVP bosses, Doppelganger and Dracula. Our next category is the little details. Small, easily missed visual or dialogue details in the manhwa that are also present in the game. Volume 10 shows scenes of Midgardians enjoying the Geffen Magic Festival. Their costumes look similar to the official costumes of first jobbers in the game. Take a look at the male and female mages, the male and female archers, and even this female merchant here. Time for a little trivia. Manhwa artist Lee Myung-jin was heavily involved in the design for the first job costumes, NPCs, and early promotional art for the game Ragnarok Online. He didn't just work on the manhwa that inspired the game, but actually worked on the early art for the game itself. Geffen guards wear the same plague mask and cape outfit as in the manhwa, as you can see here. The existence of dwarves is briefly implied in the source material in one of Fenris' spells during her fight with Biju. In the game, in the Seal of Brisingamen quest, part of the Godly Items arc, we help dwarves that are loyal to Freya. The Seal of Mjolnir quest also involves dwarven blacksmiths residing in Mount Mjolnir. Dwarven NPCs can be seen in different maps in the game, mostly serving as blacksmiths, like their counterparts in Norse myth. And finally, we've got Hodes, or Hodies, in Morok. That reminds me of an RO friend and our inside jokes about this particular monster a long time ago. Third on our list of categories is kinda similar, commonalities with notable differences. The Schwarzwald Republic is located north of Geffen and past the Mjolnir mountain range in both pieces of media. However, in the Manhwa, there is also the presence of the Asgardian mountains, which do not exist in the game. In the Manhwa, Iris asks Captain Furlock about how the airship works, and she gets a similar response like in the How the Airship Works quest in the game, which we've done a quest lore video about in the previous year. However, in the source material, Furlock refers to the Ymir heart piece as a levitator, and describes it as a piece that broke off a long time ago from an ancient powerful relic. In the game, it's called a rune engine. Additionally, the Ymir's heart fragment in RO is merely an imitation made by Varmint and not an actual piece of Ymir's heart. Gefenfanen in Ragnarok Online is also the entrance to the ancient elven kingdom of Gefenia, which is considered to be in Alfheim, although in the Manhwa it is simply called Alfheim or the lost ancient kingdom of Thralgard. The map shown in Volume 8 bears a striking resemblance to Rune Midgard's geography in the game, albeit with a couple of differences. Next up, we have honorable mentions, small mentions in the Manhwa that have bigger significance in the game. Dragon Knights, which are the 4th job class for swordsmen, seem to have been the organization that took in and trained the young Chaos in the source material. In his memory, he was a child from a village that was attacked by some unknown sinister group. Most villagers died except for him. There is also a child who looked like Fenris, who appears to be unconscious in this memory. The leader of the Dragon Knights, a gruffy long-haired fella, saved him. Since he has no memory of his past, he was initially named Vermilion, but was later changed to Chaos by the same Dragon Knight. The constellations, a key aspect of East Asian mythology, referring to the 4 dragons that guard the 4 cardinal directions, are present in both the game and the Manhwa, although this is only briefly mentioned a couple of times in the latter. In the source material, Paeon is one of the 4 villages formed by the descendants of these 4 constellations. Iris's blue dragon sword, named Chunryang-do in Korean, represents the Azure Dragon who guards the eastern direction, known as Seiryu in Japan, Cheongryong in Korea, and Tenlong in Vietnam. This dragon is associated with spring, rain, agriculture, and the element of wood. On the other hand, in Ragnarok Online, the constellations are ancient powerful dragons who can take humanoid forms and travel through the space-time continuum. They also like to meddle in the affairs of mortals. They are Oscar Caragnus, the constellation of space and time, whom you meet in Edda Fall of Glassheim and is the most powerful of the 4. He's also the primary figure in Constellation Tower, which replaced Endless Tower as a dungeon and game mode. Curiously, he is also now a playable character job in Ragnarok Mobile Eternal Love. Leticia, whom you meet in the Dragon Knight job change quest, and also shows up in Constellation Tower in the Echoes of the Fallen Tower update, which came out in January 2025 in IRO. Beetlejuice, the primary boss in the tower. Here he is in JRO's promotional video for 4 jobs for extended classes and the Constellation Tower, and in KRO's video for the Memorial Dungeon update. And lastly, we have Rigel, the Constellation of Life, whom you meet in the Garden of Time Hall of Life instance from the new IRO update for level 250 and above. Here comes one bonus category before we move on to differences. Straight from the Manhwa. Instances that were added later in the game to commemorate characters and events from the source material. As mentioned in our lore retrospective video, Heroes as Trails are memorial dungeons, commonly known as instances that were added in 2014 in IRO between episodes 14 and 15. They feature characters and events from the Manhwa and are accessible through the Dimensional Gap map in the New World. Although NPCs in this map refer to these instances as events from the past, which is, in a way, correct since the Manhwa is set in 997 AW, 3 years before the events of the Ragnarok Online MMO, set in 1000 AW, there's more to it than mere time travel. As you'll see later, when we discuss the differences between the Manhwa and the game, it is clear that traveling to these instances also means traversing between 2 universes or dimensions. In short, we are traveling through the space-time continuum, visiting past events in a parallel universe. Now that we're clear on that, let's talk about these instances. There are 6 main ones: Faceworm Nest as part of Heroes' Trails 1, Devil's Tower, Geffen Magic Tournament, and Ghost Palace as part of Heroes' Trails 2, Fenrir and Sarah from Heroes' Trails 3 Part 1, and Attack on Airship from Heroes' Trails 3 Part 2. Later on, more instances were released, including Sarah's Memory and the more challenging near-endgame content Geffen Night Arena, Tomb of Remorse, and Airship Crash Investigation. Additionally, in episode 16.1, Royal Banquet, alternatively called Banquet for Heroes, the Room of Consciousness instance allows players to experience firsthand Fenris and Iris' tag team battle against Himmelmez's right-hand woman, Biju. Players can also witness Himmelmez's attempt to invade and destroy Pantera in the old Pantera instance, accessible right after completing Room of Consciousness. There is another minor instance called Sky Fortress in episode 16.1, where players invade Himmelmez's floating fortress known as Dark Whisper in the source material. In this memorial dungeon, we fight off Stefan Jack Ernest Wolf, a zombie abomination who serves as Himmelmez's right-hand man in the manhwa, although I don't remember him having a name there. Anyway, here are a few notable features of these memorial dungeons. In Faceworm Nest, as in the source material, we work with Chaos and Iris to hunt faceworms for a bounty. Players can enjoy the fun banter between these two young adventurers. The event plays out in a longer and more detailed way in this instance, of course. The Devil's Tower instance lets players witness 2 Satan Morok invasion attempts through a time jump. In the first attempt 400 years ago, we helped Thanatos and Lucille seal off Surt. Once we successfully do so, we are then magically transported to his more recent attempt in the manhwa, where we help Loki battle it out with a deranged follower of Surt's, masquerading as a knight working for the Morok Castle, who is in the middle of a ritual to summon his demon master. Note that in the manhwa, this guy is actually the lord of the Morok Castle, making him the leader of Morok. In the Ragnarok Online universe, though, this recent summoning attempt is performed by Ryan Moore, a Freya worshipper from Arunafelds, who enlists the help of the Assassin's Guild to keep him safe throughout his nefarious plot. The irony is that the Assassin's Guild is also working on stopping him. These events are told in the now unavailable Dandelion's Request, which is one of my favorite quests in the game. The Geffen Magic Tournament allows you to actually join the competition and face off with some of Fenris' opponents, including alchemist Faye Canavian. Her homunculus is originally named Skrimir in the manhwa, while it's called Alphonse in the game. The final match of this instance is with Fenris Fenrir herself. Look at her looking so unimpressed whether you win or lose. In Ghost Palace, we follow Sakurai's dark backstory as a former royal guard. His heartbreak when his beloved Princess Tiara is betrothed to a prince from a neighboring country, his betrayal by said prince, and his descent into madness when he finds the sword Talatsu, which is also known as Tartanos or Tirfing in other manhwa localizations. Interestingly, in this memorial dungeon, the sword is named Thanatos' magical device. Could it really be Thanatos' dark essence, his feelings of pain and sorrow, that haunts this legendary weapon? In Fenrir and Sarah, also known as the Sword of Baldur, we accompany Fenris in exploring a version of Glass Time to locate the Sentinel Bridge Sword, which is said to have the power to find the reincarnation of Baldur, aka Chaos. In the manhwa, instead of Glass Time, Fenris goes to Breidablik, a sacred temple dedicated to Baldur. In both pieces of media, she encounters the Valkyrie Sarah, who attempts to stop her. In the source material, she sends her ice giants against Fenris, who are called Gigantes or Gigantes in the game. Attack on Airship is a longer version of what transpires in the source material when Arcana, Zenobia's right-hand woman, attacks the international airship transporting Chaos, Fenris, Iris, and Loki to Schwarzwald. It is interesting that Captain Furlock is also the airship captain in this parallel universe. One difference, though, is that the Rangers of Asgard, a parody of idol groups and magical girls, are portrayed as ninjas in this instance instead of rangers. We know this because they cast their Huma Blaze Shuriken skill against the Gremlin invaders. General Karl Johann Spiegel of the Pantera Knights, who helps the team escape prison, can be found in the old Pantera instance, which in the manhwa is happening simultaneously with the Iris x Fenris vs Bijou fight. However, he is known in the Memorial Dungeon as Guard Captain Spiegel. In Sarah's memory, we encounter a young Sarah Irene and witness the events that made her develop such intense hatred against her father, the village chief of Paeon, leading up to her recruitment as a Valkyrie. Although the events in the manhwa are kept vague, in this Memorial Dungeon it is explained that the murder of Sarah's mother by her father is a simple misunderstanding. Instead, her father slays the assassin, with his corpse lying some distance away from Sarah's mother. This version in the game also shows that it was Odin's beholders that took in Sarah, with the promise implying Odin would be a better father figure for her. While the later instances, Geffen Knight Arena and Airship Crash Investigation, aren't very friendly to the lore of the manhwa, the Tomb of Remorse Memorial Dungeon is worth challenging for its story. Told from the perspectives of the sorrowful ghost of Princess Tiara and the remorseful ghost of the Marquis, aka the prince she was engaged to, we can pick up so-called fragments of memories, readables that describe snippets of Sakurai's backstory. The two bosses we contend with are Princess Tiara and Sakurai himself. Okay, let's now move on to the differences between the manhwa and the game. Our first category is Major World Building Differences. One major difference is that Heart of Ymir pieces scattered all over the Midgard continent grow into full hearts in the source material. One is found beneath the Pantera castle, which in the manhwa was taken by the Valkyrie Sarah Irene. According to General Spiegel, once a year, these hearts emit light and point to one another, with the rune Midgard's heart pointing towards Schwarzwald, guiding our heroes to their next destination. In the game, however, if I'm not mistaken, these pieces don't grow into full hearts. Most of the heart pieces we encounter in the game are also imitation ones created by Varmint in order to harness the power of the genuine heart piece and turn it into sort of a battery for technological marvels such as the airship. One Ymir heart piece also allegedly lies beneath the castle, but in the form of the Blessing Star, enclosed in the Terra Gloria, the crown that signifies the king of Rune Midgard's right to rule. Toward the end of episode 16.1, this crown is taken by Heart Hunters, preventing the royal families from installing a new king to replace Tristan Gaibolg III. We find out that the stolen crown actually only houses an imitation heart piece. Still, these imitation hearts hold so much power, so in episode 16.2, we track down these heart hunters to bring the crown back to Rune Midgard's and stop a Regenberg scientist from using the power of the imitation heart piece for his experiments. Some jobs are different. There is no such thing as a cleric in RO. Iris feels more like a soul linker, who calls on the powers of ancient spirits instead of using holy skills, harnessing the power of Odin and his angels. It is odd that neither soul linkers nor priests can equip swords, but Iris's main weapon is one. It is only in battle with Bijou that Iris uses a spell in Latin, which is the language used in the naming of most priest skills. In the last few pages of Volume 7, however, both Iris and Fenris get a makeover. Iris's new costume looks more like that of a priest, while Fenris looks more like a warlock. Fan favorite Concierge and Logistics Corporation, Kafra Corp or Kafra Inc., does not make an appearance in the manhwa. Dorams, the only other playable race in Ragnarok Online, don't appear in the source material. Unless Lydia's talking cat, Seth, localized as Seth in Airship Crash Investigation, is one. We know that she is not an anthropomorphic cat, unlike Dorams, but there is also a talking regular-sized cat that teleports you to the Dimensional Gorge. Could it be that there are multiple subspecies of Dorams? Like how in the world of the Elder Scrolls there are anthropomorphic humanoid Khajiits, regular-sized cat Khajiits, and lion Khajiits? None of the MVPs, even iconic ones from classic ROs such as Baphomet and Drake, appear in the manhwa. This, of course, does not include Thanatos and Satan Morok or Surt, who are briefly mentioned in one of the early volumes. Because the manhwa ends before Chaos and the gang could arrive in Schwarzwald, we don't see the Republic in the source material, nor do we learn much about it. As such, our favorite dimension in time-traveling mystery man, the great sage Varmint, sadly does not appear, nor does he get a brief mention in the manhwa. We also don't get any mention of the infamous Ragnarök Corps and their fight with the mercenary rebellions. Also, due to the aforementioned abrupt end before Schwarzwald, no post-renewal content such as the New World is shown in the manhwa. Another consequence of the manhwa ending in Volume 10 is that we do not see any of the geopolitical issues between the countries, which, as we've mentioned in our lore retrospective video, is one of the main themes in the game. And speaking of geopolitics, we have Geopolitical Differences. In the source material, there is no mention of a country that worships Freya at all. Arunafeld simply doesn't exist. I wonder if Mr. Lee had plans to include Arunafelds in later volumes. Phaon in the manhwa doesn't seem aesthetically similar to the Phaon we see in the game. It's still mountainous, but the architecture looks a little different. Phaon's chief, in the game at least, is definitely not Iris' father. Prantera is the capital of the Volsung Kingdom in the manhwa instead of it being the capital city of Rune Midgards. The Volsung Kingdom itself doesn't exist in the game. In the source material, since Prantera is treated as part of a different kingdom, Chaos and Iris are called foreigners by Prantera citizens since they are from Phaon. But in the game, these cities are part of the same kingdom. You will only be called a foreigner if you go to Schwarzwald or Arunafelds. We've also got Kinda Different. In the base game, not as part of the Heroes' Trails instance, the airship gets attacked by gremlins, hudremlins, and beholders, monsters that can be found in the dungeon beneath Rachel's Sasramnir temple. In short, these monsters are from Arunafelds. In the manhwa, on the other hand, the airship is attacked by gremlins and wyverns led by Arcana, Valkyrie Zenobia's minion. The word sorcerers is used in the manhwa to refer to all magic dealers, but in RO, this is only the name for the third job for sages. All airship staff in the source material are of the reindeer race, like Furlock, but that's not how it is in the game. Furlock staff are all Normans. Next up is, they do not exist, in the game at least. Unless you count the ones in the Heroes' Trails instance, Devil's Tower, the creatures called Shadow Dwellers attacking the Mora Castle and are fended off by members of the Assassin's Guild do not exist in the game. In the source material, there is a race called Dark Elf. Valkyrie Zenobia and the elven archer Reyna are two of the Dark Elves we meet in the manhwa. This race does not exist in Ragnarok Online. If I'm not mistaken, the only elven race featured in RO are the Lafines of Eclage, who were at one point at war with the frost giant race of Safas from Jotunheim. In the game, there is no Geffen Magic Festival that is held every 3 years, with its main show being the Geffen Magic Tournament. The latter was added in Heroes' Trails. We never meet the leader of Geffen City in the game, but in the manhwa, his name is Viceroy Zanzibar Helmet, who's also the Archmage and director of the Magic Academy, and is after the secrets and treasures of Geffenia. We do meet him in Heroes' Trails though. And finally, a bonus category aptly called Questions. Since the manhwa abruptly ends in Volume 10, I have a rather long list of questions related to the source material and their lore implications in Ragnarok Online. Here are some. How can Sarah command the frost giants of Jotunheim? And are they a different race from the Safas in RO? The city of Dema is mentioned in the manhwa, which is said to be led by 12 Valkyries. Are half of them Odin's and the other half Freya's? And where can the city be found? In Asgard? Freya needs the heart of Ymir for the end of the world and to maintain her newfound position for the next 1,000 years, if she ever succeeds. But it is also mentioned in the manhwa that the more hearts of Ymir that she has, the more power she'll have, enough to alter reality. What for? Why would she want that? Who are the beholders? Are they really doing Odin's bidding? If so, why did they let Sakurai kill the assassins? To bring Loki and Chaos together? Are they pitting them against each other, or do they know that they need to meet and work together to fight Freya? They mention a resurrected Freya in the source material. Did all the gods die and get resurrected? How come Chaos can summon Nidhogger? Is it because his mother Frigg bound her soul to this dragon? So does that mean that her soul is still inside Nidhogara in the game? But in RO, the Nidhogara we meet feels more like an innocent young lady than a hardened, mature goddess and wife to Odin. In a previous video, on top of Ruch's theory that Loki could be the reincarnation of the legendary warrior Thanatos, I mentioned that I have a theory that Loki could also be the reincarnation of the god Loki. In the manhwa, he is called one who is both human and not, which is why I came to that conclusion. However, in the source material, he also has visions of events happening simultaneously but are far away from his location, like when his guild was annihilated by Sakurai. He also has wound healing capabilities. I feel like those two are more commonly associated with the all-seeing, all-father Odin. Could he then be Odin, or a different Asgardian god? Juliana Lucille, one of the 7 guillotine crosses in the manhwa, and is connected to Lucy in Ragnarok Origin, is also found by Varmint in Thanatos Tower in the game. Who is she? Is she another Asgardian reincarnation? When Sakurai was annihilating the assassins, why did someone say that he's from Asgard? Is he another reincarnation? His personality feels like he could be Loki. What do you bunnrings think? Hemomes calls herself the Blood of Hela and Death in mortal form. Is she Hel or Hela's daughter? How did she become a Valkyrie? As a side note, the only time in the game that I do remember meeting Lady Hel is during the Sign quest. The manhwa ends with Loki and Lydia stuck in Gefenia or Alfheim. Is that why when he appears in the game we find him in the Hazy Forest, which is near a Clage, located in Alfheim? And finally, why are some of the protagonists in the source material third jobbers like Chaos the Rune Knight and Fenris the Warlock, when in Ragnarok Online, these were only released after the resurrection of Satan Morok and the discovery of the New World? These third jobs even have their own lore associated with knowledge from the New World, which can be read on IRO's update page. I recommend you all give them a read. Whew, that was a doozy! I hope you all enjoyed the video, despite the whirlwind of factoids. Did I miss some interesting similarities or differences between Ragnarok Into the Abyss and Ragnarok Online? Do you have some burning questions about the lore that weren't addressed in the manhwa? Have you got any lore theories to share? I'd love to read them all in the comments section below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and click on the bell notification icon below to be notified every time we go live or upload a video. And don't forget to share the lore with your friends too. If you would like to support us in a more personal way, please consider becoming an official Pink or Master Bunnring on YouTube via YouTube memberships or becoming one of our Patreon Bunnrings on Patreon. YouTube and Patreon memberships give you access to additional content such as chorus diary entries, RL Bites, a monthly handwritten digital postcard, sneak peeks, members-only streams on YouTube, and no commentary cozy play episodes on Patreon. Member or not, you will always be my dear Bunnrings, and I can't wait to go on more thrilling adventures with you. Until next time, take care, good night, and goodbye! Happy lore hunting!